Tonight's talk is one that, while preparing it, so many new ideas hit me. It proves my theory, the Dennis Prager 3 mirrors theory. Many of you have heard it, but most don't remember it. So I think there are 3 mirrors in life. The physical mirror, how do you look? The physical mirror. And then, how do you think? How do you see what's in your mind? And I figured out many years ago the answer is to write. When you write what you think, then you read it, and then you realize, or at least others might, you're not thinking clearly on that subject. It's a great exercise. If I did not have to prepare this talk that I will give tonight, so many things that have now much clearer to me are now much clearer to me. The third mirror is, how do you see your character? The mirror is the people you bring into your life. It's a good theory, the 3 mirrors. So today is Yom Kippur. Allow me one heretical thought. Jews are allowed heretical thoughts. One of my, I was going to say favorite things, maybe it is, maybe that's an appropriate term about Judaism, is that the mind is free to think what it thinks. And that includes heretical, quote-unquote heretical thoughts about God. I remember, I'm sure I wasn't more than 30 years old, and I was in the car on the afternoon of Yom Kippur evening, Kol Nidre evening, and a news report came on about some child that had some terrible psychological illness. I don't know how else to term it, which involved constantly hurting himself. And he had no ability to control it. And I had the thought on Erev Yom Kippur, on the day of Yom Kippur, day before Yom Kippur evening, maybe God should have a Yom Kippur. And I don't think there's a Jew in this room who thinks that that's a bad thought. The rabbis in Auschwitz put God on trial. Elie Wiesel confirmed that story. It's not a legend. Did God break his covenant with the Jews at Auschwitz? They had him on trial. They had a defense attorney. They had a prosecutor. And the verdict came in and they found God guilty. And as soon as the verdict was rendered, they announced, and now it's time for mincha. And now it's time for the afternoon prayer. That's very Jewish, to pray after you get angry at God. You're allowed to. If God is real and we're real, we're allowed to do that. Okay, so I got the heresy out of my system. But this is really about us. One other prefatory note. We ask who will live and who will die. It's the theme, in effect, in addition to what type of person was I this past year and what type of person will I be next year. Who will live and who will die? There's a fair amount about death. There's, of course, the Yizkor remembrance prayers. It's very good for kids to know about this. Hiding the reality of death from children is foolish. You don't get dark with your child, obviously, but at an early age they should think, in the limited time they have, what will they do with it? The earlier you start asking that question, the more you will do with your life. So it's a great day, in my opinion. By the way, historically, it was never a sad day. It's not a sad day, period. It's a serious day, but it's not a sad day. Tisha B'Av is a sad day. The rabbinic fast days of tragedies in Jewish life, which if we fasted for every day that had a tragedy, we would fast all year. So that's just the sad fact of Jewish history. But this is not a sad... And one other thing, and I may mention it again in the context of my talk, it's the only time I can think of, and there are a lot of knowledgeable Jews here, so if I'm wrong, you let me know. I like being corrected because then I don't duplicate my error. But it's the only time I know of where the Torah says you should suffer. It's a very interesting thing. The Torah is against religious suffering. It opposes it. The Nazirite, the one who takes vows of abstention from permitted things like wine, brings a sin offering after the period of time that he served as a Nazirite. The Torah does not want us to suffer for God. It wants us, the number of times it says, worship God in happiness, be happy on the holiday, is probably 10-to-1 ratio to the one time it says, and it does, v'initem et nafshotechem, literally means, and you shall cause your soul to suffer. And that's how the rabbis understood that we fast. Needless to say, they added a lot more things. They didn't think that was enough suffering. But I will get to that too, on how we do things to religion that may not be originally called for. But that is an important thing to know. This is a Torah command that you not have it easy on this day, and most understood as fasting. And the reason for the fasting, or a reason, there are a number, is it's humbling. When you're weak, you're a little less arrogant. And it's a day to get sort of an enforced humbling. Wow, look at how I feel after missing food for one day. It's good. And if it has the added benefit of making you think about people who don't have food, who are not fasting for a holiday or a holy day, when I think of the tens of millions who were starved to death in the 20th century deliberately by regimes, and one day of Yom Kippur doesn't quite approximate it. So it's a very special day. I say to many of you when I shake your hand before or afterwards how honored I am that you're here. It is the truth. It's a big deal to me that you're here. Thank you. A lot of quality people here. I'm very tempted to name names, and I would, except that I know I would miss some. And it's rare that I don't fall asleep quickly. That would induce insomnia. The thought that I had missed some terrific people in mentioning names of people who were here.
Ose shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, imru, amen. Ose shalom bimramav.